Hey guys, it's Kess. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be making the ultimate 11.2 Flameshaper Evoker guide. This guide will be useful for both M Plus and Raid. I will be sharing talent builds that will be applicable to both single target situations and AoE situations, so you can use it for either form of content that you enjoy. It's going to be an ultimate guide. We're going to go through everything, tier set, gear, stats, all that kind of stuff. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and any questions you have, just leave them down below as well. Enjoy. For stats this season, Flameshaper is pretty similar to what we have previously known it to be. We're still going to be focusing on haste, crit, versus mastery in that order. Haste and crit are pretty equal to each other. We like both of them. Again, Evoker remains probably the best PI target in the game in terms of damage gained from haste itself. But again, at the end of the day, I know you guys hate this, but the simplest thing to do for your stats is sim. Sim. Always sim your character, especially with how much gear you're going to be getting in the first few weeks. Very important that you do that. Now, for those of you that absolutely hate hearing that you should sim your character and you hate simming in general, here's what our stat weights look like in our current BIS profile. Again, don't base your character off these numbers. Don't just shoot for these numbers. These aren't caps. These aren't values you're trying to get on your character. They aren't must-haves or anything like that. This is just generally what the BIS simming profile looks like for Evoker stat-wise. The second last column is buffed, so that would be what your stats would look like in Raid. And the very last column is just raw stats from your character, enchants, gems, stuff like that. No buffs at all. Again, don't base your character off this, but if you just want something to look at and be like, oh, okay, like this stat's important, you know, stuff like that, then you can look at this. Again, at the end of the day, please just sim your character. If you don't know how to do that, there's tons of resources online to teach you how. All right, jumping into the gearing part of the guide, we'll talk about trinkets, different gear, embellishments, all sort of stuff like that. Big shout out to a few people here. Again, Preheat's Wowhead guide is absolutely A tier. You guys should check it out. It'll be a link down below in the description of the video. Make sure you guys check it out. Big shout out to him. He does great stuff for Evoker. So we'll be using his Wowhead trinket tier list here because I agree with it 100%. But we'll walk through it a little bit. The absolute number one big fuck trinket you want to get this tier is this Ritual Forge. Unfortunately, it comes from Raid. For those of you who don't Raid, I highly recommend trying to sneak in there for a kill and get it in your vault or loot it in the Raid. This trinket is absolutely insane. It's a 2-minute trinket, lines up perfect with Dragon Rage, has crit main stat on it. We like that. Absolute nuclear bomb trinket. Another one then you want to pair it with is potentially this Azakaran Parapodia. This comes from the new Echo Dome dungeon. This is just sort of a passive trinket that you kind of put on and forget about. Another potential one is from the Raid, the Astral Antenna. This one is also just a passive trinket you kind of put on and forget about. Another passive option that is very good is the Sack Brood that is returning this season. Very good trinket. A on-use alternative, for those of you who don't Raid for the Ritual Forge, is the Lily of the Eternal Weave. It's a mastery on use. It's 1.5 minute cooldown, similar to what House of Cards was. Again, if you do opt to use this, just make sure you never press it at 130. You always press it with your Dragon Rage and your cooldowns. It is worth holding, trust me. Another option, if you don't Raid for an unused trinket, is Signet of the Priory. Not the best option out there, but again, decent alternative if you can't get the Ritual Forge from the Raid. And the rest of these are pretty much just stat sticks. I would probably stay away from the Void Core. There's some pretty degenerate gameplay that you would want to be doing to get max value out of this trinket. You get pretty good value if you don't stay below 25% mana, but again, in order to get max value out of the trinket, you would want to do that. So I would probably stay away from this if possible. If you get it, I mean, great, but wouldn't be my ideal option. And And then for those of you that enjoy M+, the only ranking in this tier list that I would change for M+ players is Solea's secret technique. Select a player in your party or raid, and you give them X amount of their highest secondary stat, and it gives you X amount of that same stat. In historic seasons when this was existing, usually pretty much everyone in the group, in the M+ group, would wear this, and then you would just buff each other with a trinket. And that was like max DPS that your group could get. So if you loot one of these, hold on to it, especially if you like pushing high keys. This might become the meta towards the end of the season. So definitely hang on to that one. But yeah, that's it for trinkets. Moving on over to gear. Now, again, there are so many different gear options and combinations you can make. Highly, 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 highly recommend you just sim your character throughout the season. I know it's annoying, but you got to do it. Shout out to Gil from Pop Tart Corn Dog, Evoker Discord. He gave me a sim profile that he's been using. Simming 6.3 million single target patchwork, and this was the gear profile he used. Just to give you guys like a, something to look at, something to think about. But for the most part, we're wearing our tier. There's a few neck options. There's this crit haste one. I think this one's probably what I would wear for M+. And then for raid, there's one that's like extremely high haste. It's like 8,000 haste on it or something. That one is also a very good option. That comes from the raid. Obviously, your cloak. Put either crit or haste in your cloak with the fiber. But again, just sim it. Depends what your character needs stat-wise. And then for embellishments, you again have a few options. One thing I really want to stress, though, is you guys shouldn't stress about embellishments. I swear every tier, this is what people freak out about the most. Like, embellishments are so small. They matter, yes, but they are like a very, very, very small DPS game, okay? So let's create a few scenarios here. If I walk into my first vault of the season or my first mythic raid of the season and I looted a two-handed staff, well, I probably don't want to craft a staff or a one-handed weapon, right? I've just been blessed. You can always worry about optimizing your character later on in the season, right? At the end of the season, you have infinite crests, you have pretty well infinite sparks. You probably have access to way more gear from the raid, stuff like that, right? So you can worry about like fully optimizing your character later. My best advice and how I like to play the game is I play what the game gives me, right? So if I got a staff, I obviously am not crafting a weapon. I am saving crests, right? Crests are the most important thing early on. So if you get a weapon, a two-handed, obviously don't craft a main hand or an offhand. From there, you have two options. You could craft a double dawn thread or a double dusk thread. And yes, it's probably weird to hear that you could craft a double dusk thread. That's the versatility one. But I think it actually is a solid option this season if you want. Evoker generally really lacks versatility. For those of you that like M+, as the keys kind of climb up, it can matter more and more and more. If you did any keys last season on Evoker, once you got to like that 20 range, things started to just hit you like a truck, even through walls. So that is one option. Other option is double crit embellishment. Again, this is assuming you got a weapon. If you don't get a weapon, okay, if you get no two-hander, I think the best thing you could do is what's done in the sim here, and it's find a one-hander, right? Whether that's raid or M+, craft Ascendance, and then use the armor banding on and off piece. Generally, craft your lowest item level piece so that you get the biggest upgrade. But again, sim. So yeah, put the armor banding on so that it makes your Ascendance even stronger. That's sort of, I think, the ideal situation. But again, play with what your character gives you, play with what your raid gives you, and how your vaults treat you in the early season. For off-piece, we're probably looking at gloves, but again, don't be too picky, right? It depends what your raid leader gives you. But this is just, again, an ideal situation towards the end of the season. We will probably be wearing the belt for a very long time. This belt is very good for Evoker. And the reason why it's good for Evoker is because we have, like, majority of our damage is through channeling spells, right? Disintegrate. For some reason, channeled spells get higher uptime on this belt than other people who just have, like, instant cast spells. So this belt is very good for Evoker for a very long time, unless they nerf it. Keep that in mind. And again, just sim which ability is best. This sim ran the versatility one, which is very strong. But again, just if you're curious, sim. And then, yeah, everything else, like, a lot of flexible options. Again, high level is generally king early on. Take what you can get and then adjust your character around that. Obviously, the boots from the raid, these are extremely bis. You want to get your hands on these. Unfortunately, they have reduced power for every difficulty you go lower. So, like, Mythic is 50%, Heroic is 40%, and then it drops to, like, 20% and then 10% or something like that for, like, normal and LFR. So, ideally, you get the Mythic boots. Heroic, only a 10% difference. Again, it's definitely an item you want, at least on Heroic. One quick note before I forget. We are sort of forced to use specific slots this season, right? We have the cloak, we have the belt, and then you have your tier sets, and you also have the boots. This leaves you very few crafting options, right? So you are almost forced into having crafted piece be on your bracers or your gloves. So make sure you guys consider that. Okay, moving on to talents for this season. I think for raid, pure single target fights, I think this is generally what you'll play. Again, if the boss has Unravel, you can obviously drop Oppressing Roar, take Unravel. If for some reason you need Cauterizing Flame, that's something you can opt into as well. Don't think you need Source of Magic in raid unless your healer is absolutely begging for it. This is pretty small mana gain for them in raid, and again, only a 3% throughput. If they need it, obviously take it for them, but generally speaking, I don't think most guilds will require you to play it, but maybe. Another flexible option is Time Spiral, which would give the entire raid a movement spell to help you beat high movement mechanics, or Spatial Paradox to maybe give your Disc Priest during a difficult movement part of the fight so they could do their ramp or whatever. But again, leave these up to sort of what your raid wants and what they ask of you. Moving on over to the Devastation side. Honed Aggression, I think, again, if it's pure single target, take this. If not, you can move Honed Aggression into Eternity Span. This will give you, 2-target or multi-cleave, right? So that's a flexible node. And then, honestly, I think that's it. Then in regards to the Flameshaper hero talent tree for raid, there's nothing really special going on here. We take Enkindle. We take Trailblazer, but again, be careful with this talent because your hovers move a lot quicker than normal. So don't accidentally hover into a mechanic or deep breath into a mechanic because you weren't expecting to be fast. Life Cinders maybe has some value. I put a big maybe around this on some random boss fight where, you need to external someone with Renewing Blaze. Very unlikely, though. More of an M+ thing. For raid, generally, Draconic Instincts is insanely OP. This gives you a pretty nice safety blanket for a lot of mechanics throughout the raid, so I highly recommend this one. And then that's pretty much it for raid. If you guys need any specific changes, again, just listen to your raid leader, or if anything requires a specific utility spell that we have, just follow along what they tell you to do. For M+, there's a few talent builds I will put forward to you guys, but this one will probably be what you see played the most. This one has a very, very happy medium of both insanely good single target, 2-target cleave, 3-target cleave, and AoE as well. This build is probably the best bet you could go for. I highly recommend this one, especially for the average player. On the Evoker side, first things first, you have multiple utility points that you can move around, okay? So in this case, I have short tail swipe. I think this is generally like the most universal point you can take. This has value in most keys. It's always good to have a shorter stop, especially after they nerf this. Blizzard, please revert it. Thank you. So again, you could take short tail swipe. You could take cauterizing flame. You could take sleepwalk if you need it for some fun evoker skip. You could take deep breath stun. I generally don't take this nowadays, especially when you're not scale commander, right? Because it's a 2 minute cooldown stun, and VDH is often in the meta, and like other classes have just way better stuns, so you don't want to DR packs. That's pretty important when you're doing your stop rotations. So if we're sending deep breath pretty early in our opener, if we're playing imminent destruction, we're not in this build, but if we are, right, then you're just DRing the mobs for free. So I would be very cautious with Terror of the Skies. Base it off what's in your comp. Then you can decide from there if your group needs it or not. Unravel if there's some sort of shield boss in the dungeon. It's very rare that Unravel gets like insane value in a key because you're committing an entire talent point to potentially like one boss. But in the case of Rookery last season, like last boss was probably the most important thing in the key. It was worth it for a scenario like that. So be cautious with taking Unravel. Make sure it's actually worth committing an entire talent point to for that one specific scenario. Time Spiral or Spatial. I always base these off what healer is in my group. If I'm playing with a priest, I automatically take Spatial Paradox and I disregard Time Spiral's effect on my party. Priest gains so much value from Spatial Paradox, and if there's any sort of healing and movement mechanic paired together, this is just OP for them, right? Otherwise, Time Spiral, if you're playing a Shaman healer, especially, Time Spiral is very good for them. But again, just base this off of your group comp. If I see Evokers enter M+ without Rescue Shield, without Zephyr, and without Source of Magic and Potent Mana, man, it is so frustrating to see when Evokers do that. You guys are trolling. You could maybe argue dropping Source and Potent, but again, like if you're serious about keys, you're doing high keys, you are just trolling. If you're doing low keys, it doesn't matter if you're still trolling if you drop Rescue and Zephyr. These are defensives. These are group defensives. They are for you. They are for your group. Part of the reason why Evoker gets so much hate is because you guys are on the floor. You guys are floor POV all the time. And then I look at your talents and you don't have these. Take these, okay? Twin Guardian is the most broken defensive in the game. It is a very short cooldown and it is insane absorb shield, okay? Please. And Zephyr, very good, very effective in almost every dungeon. Very, very good, okay? Please take these talents. They are very useful. Don't give Evoker a bad name because you want to randomly take Recall or some random talent, okay? Please. I beg. In the hero talent tree for M+, nothing really crazy here. Shape of Flame is pretty cool. So your tail swipe and your knockback, they basically make the mobs miss their next attack for 4 seconds. It applies to one attack within that 4-second window, but this is very niche and has a lot of potential to be good. You just have to find the right scenarios for it. I'll probably make a video entirely on this ability later in the season when I know where it's applicable. But for example, last season in Theater of Pain, the Arbalists, they put a nasty bleed on people. If you tail swipe or push them back and then let them cast their bleed on one of your teammates, it would miss and it wouldn't apply. Okay, so we're looking out for situations like that. Very good talent. In Kindle, obviously for damage, and then Life Cinders or Draconic Instincts, I would base this off of the dungeon and the damage of the dungeon. If the dungeon has like some sort of let's say a boss fight where there's either rot, like heavy rot, or there's a mechanic kind of like First Boss of Cinder Brew where it'll pick 2 people for a debuff. This is very good because you can Renewing Blaze yourself and your partner, and it honestly can kind of carry mechanics. It's pretty good. Yeah, that's it for that. Going on to the Devastation Evoker side. This, again, is probably what I would play in most keys. But there is another build you can play. If for some reason, let's say like you had Havoc DH and an Arcane Mage, like your group had too much Prio or something like that, you could swap Scintillation and Azure Celerity into Imminent Destruction and Feed the Flames. This is going to bring your single target down quite a bit, but it's going to bring your AoE up quite a bit as well. So that's the Feed the Flames build. Again, you guys can play either or. It doesn't really matter too much. Just if you're into more of the higher keys, just consider the impact that each one has. And again, I would base it off of your group comp, or even potentially the dungeon. But I'll leave that, guys, up to you. You guys can decide for yourselves. Both build is fine. Both build is acceptable. But generally speaking, your keys will be faster if you play the Scintillation Azure Celerity build, because keys are faster when bosses die faster because they are the biggest time sink, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so for our single target rotation, I've created this image for you guys, and there's a little bit of notes under each ability, but I'll walk you through it and explain exactly what's. Now, keep in mind, this is a lot different from what you're used to, so it's going to take time to get used to. So, you convert and Embrace Yourself. I didn't add that in the image, but do the Ancient Flame if you're playing the talent. You convert and Embrace Yourself, start with a precast Living Flame, precast a rank 1 Eternity Surge, then we're going to go into Dragon Rage. Then we are going to Living Flame twice. And the reason we're doing this is we want Essence Bursts. You always want 2 Essence Bursts going into your Engulf window, okay? Engulf is what activates Inner Flame. Inner Flame is your TIERSET, okay? When you're in Inner Flame, your Essence Burst will send out Essence Bombs, okay? So always very important, if you are going to Engulf, you are going into that Engulf window with 2 Essence Bursts to have immediate bombs right away, okay? That makes up a lot of your damage, okay? So Dragon Rage, Living Flame twice. You don't need to cast the second Living Flame if for some reason you have 2 Essence Bursts already, okay? So keep that in mind, pay attention to that. That'll save you a global, right? Okay, then after that, you would tip the scales, Trinket, and Potion, and cast Fire Breath into a Shattering Star, into a double Engulf, and now here's where things kind of get weird and spicy. You are going to then Disintegrate twice in a row. You are going to clip them fast for max Essence Bomb usage, right? So when you Disintegrate, you are consuming these 2 Living Flames that we turned into Essence Bursts, right? So we're going to Disintegrate twice, consume the Essence Bursts. That is going to send out 2 Essence Bombs from the TIERSET, okay? So we are clipping those very fast. Basically, the whole idea of this is that you want to munch as many Essence Bursts as you can in that Inner Flame window to get max Essence Bomb damage, okay? So very, very important that you go on Wago and you grab a Weak Aura that tracks the Inner Flame window, okay? All right, let's come back to this. Disintegrate twice really fast, right? Spending the Essence Bursts. Then when we're dry on Essence Bursts, we are going to Living Flame for more Essence Bursts, right? Which is going to give us more Essence Bomb. Okay. Then we are going to Disintegrate twice again. Consume the Essence Bombs. Keep in mind that we only cast 1 Living Flame here because this is going to be a Leaping Flame from our max rank Fire Breath, right? So this is guaranteed going to give us all the Essence Bursts we need to do 2 Disintegrates in a row. So because that Leaping will guarantee you 2 Disintegrates in a row that are Essence Bombs, there are a few options here. The DPS difference is quite small, but you see how I have 3 Disintegrates here? In between this third one, you can either channel the third one after the first two that are essence bombed. Or if you're good enough, you could mix in an Azure Strike right here, get one more Essence Burst, consume it with a Disintegrate into an Essence Bomb, and then go into your rank 1 Fire Breath. That is an option. The easier option is to just cast a third Disintegrate, go into the rank 1 Fire Breath, and then continue on rotation from there. After the Fire Breath, again, you want to Living Flame. And then from here, you're basically just following this sort of idea the entire rest of the way, right? We're casting our empowerments on cooldown, okay? If we have Engulf available, we're max rank Fire Breathing, okay? If Engulf is not available, you just send out a rank 1 Fire Breath, okay? Nice and simple. Eternity Surge, obviously rank 1, okay? It's single target. But then from there, it's basically just get Essence Bursts, spend them through Disintegrate, get Essence Bursts, spend them through Disintegrate, press your Empowers on cooldown, okay? It sounds like a lot. It's not too hard. Trust me. Just go hit the dummy for a bit. You will pick this up very fast. But again, and I want to stress this, do not do this until you get the new Mana Forge 4-piece, okay? This does not apply to Undermine 4-piece at all. So in the early stage of the tier, follow last season's rotation. This is for the new one. All right, so moving on to our AoE rotation for 11.2 for Flameshaper. Just before I get into this, it is still extremely important that when you are going to engulf an AoE, you have all of your active dots on the priority mob. And the priority mob is the mob with the most HP. That is what we call the timer mob. It takes the longest to kill, and it slows down the key if you kill everything around it, and then you're just left hitting one mob, right? Make sure you have all of your dots on that mob. It will do the most single target damage when you go to engulf the mob. Make sure you do it. Don't be lazy. It's very important. So, with that being said, while the tank is gathering, you can precast a Living Flame on whatever the important mob is. Then from there, if you have Imminent Destruction, this is where you would want a Deep Breath once everything's gathered and you're ready to go. If you don't have Imminent Destruction, this is still, I think, the best place to use Deep Breath. If you don't use it here, I would use it after Dragon Rage is done and you're not in an Inner Flame window, okay? That's if you don't have Imminent Destruction, consider those. From there, you want to hard cast a Firestorm when you land from Deep Breath. You do a Shattering Star with your Trinket and Potion combo next with Dragon Rage. Then, Shattering Star will give us one Essence Burst, right? So here we want to cast a Living Flame once to get our second Essence Burst. If you already have Essence Burst pooled up, you can skip this part. The whole idea is that we are just taking advantage of the Inner Flame window, much like in single target, and throwing out as many Essence Bombs as we can. Okay, so I'll back up a bit here. Shattering Star, then Potion plus Trinket plus Dragon Rage. Living Flame if you don't have two Essence Bursts. Tip the Scales Fire Breath, and then Engulf twice. Now from here, the bottom line is basically just your priority list. So Snapfires, if you get Snapfire proc, which is the free Firestorm, you absolutely press that immediately. You don't want to overcap those. Those do a lot of your damage. Press those on cooldown as soon as they happen. If Firestorm itself, its cooldown is available, you can hard cast that, get it down. Shattering Star, basically press this on cooldown so long as you won't be overcapping on Essence Bursts. And then especially if you ever need Essence, if you are completely dry and the button is available, just press it. Fire Breath, very simple. In Dragon Rage, obviously press it on cooldown. If you are about to engulf, you ideally want to max rank it. Always max rank your Fire Breath when you are going to engulf. If you are not engulfing, just rank 2 Fire Breath. This will give you max Embers uptime, which will give you extra damage for your pyres and such. And then, yeah, engulf on cooldown, never hold engulfs. And then if none of that is available, basically just pyre your life away. You're a pyre machine, pyre until one of those things comes up. If you need Essence ever in Dragon Rage, out of Dragon Rage, literally never Azure Strike. Azure Strike sucks. We have no modifiers for it in Flameshaper. It is doo-doo. Don't press it. You would rather Living Flame. Living Flame applies Ruby Embers. It has a chance to proc Snapfires, and it just does more damage, okay? Keep that in mind. Azure Strike is literally bottom of the barrel button you ever press. Low priority. Eternity Surge. This spell is also back to being crappy. It doesn't really do much damage, especially with the tier set, compared to last season. So in general, just rank 1 this and get to casting other spells because your time is not worth spending channeling an Eternity Surge to full. Just doesn't do much, okay? Press other things. And that's basically it for AoE, right? It's pretty simple. As soon as you get your opener down, Snapfires, Firestorms, Pyre as much as you can. Once your Fire Breath is back up, rank 2. If you're engulfing, rank 4. Boom, done. Big damage. Very simple. Now, to end off this video, I just really want to stress defensively how strong Evoker can be. And I want to sort of stomp on this narrative that Evokers are squishy and they're like a floor POV spec. But I will say, in order to be tanky, you have to be very proactive on this class, okay? You cannot be reactive. Evoker really struggles with being reactive to damage. You must be proactive. And what I mean by that is you got to understand the damage profiles and when damage is incoming in the dungeons. Okay? You have 2 Obsidian Scale charges, okay? Obsidian Scales is 30% DR. This is very strong. This will get you through most hard-hitting things. As you climb into the higher keys, you might need a little bit extra. You might need to like double up on things, but worry about that when you get there. Use notevenclose.com. It'll tell you how to live. But please press your buttons and be proactive, okay? Obsidian Scales, amazing, okay? Rescue Shield, the most broken thing in the game. This is a 1-minute cooldown. It gives you an absorb. This can also carry you through most mechanics, especially in the mid to low key levels, okay? When you get into higher keys, this can often be something you use to help other people, or it can be used to help double up on a defensive if you need it for an insane one-shot in the dungeon pool. Again, Zephyr is basically 20% avoidance for everyone in the group. Gives movement speed as well. That part's irrelevant. Make sure you're using this generally in the Evoker Discords or on Zephyrus's websites and stuff like that. There'll be spreadsheets and documents telling you where this spell works. Make sure you guys take a look at that stuff. This spell is very good, but generally any sort of AoE, any sort of rot type mechanic that's affected by avoidance, generally speaking, it's safe to assume that this works on it. It's very easy to check in logs yourself as well, but make sure you're using this. Renewing Blaze, again, another insanely OP 1-minute cooldown, okay? This button is so good. You want to use this in a few different ways. The most important one being any sort of like rot, any sort of decay, any sort of like overtime AoE damage. This will basically, you'll take the damage and then it'll heal you back up over the duration of the mechanic. So for example, a boss like second boss in Dawnbreaker, it does like a channeled AoE that hits very hard for X amount of seconds, right? If you're renewing Blaze that, it's going to take a lot of the load off your healer, right? This button is very good. If you want to get a little bit more creative with this button in high keys, you can sort of like, again, this comes to understanding damage profiles in the dungeons, but if there's like a hard-hitting spell and there's no damage after that, and you're not going to need this button within 1 minute, you could Obsidian Scales and Renewing Blaze, and then you'll heal yourself back up. And because there's no damage event after the initial one, your healer then can just do more damage and they don't have to heal you. Again, that's very min-max, very minor. Probably would only do that in like organized groups where you're trying to min-max your DPS and your healer's globals. But again, something to think of. On top of all this, you have the option with Life Cinders and Draconic Instincts. Draconic Instinct, more of like an AFK passive sort of safety net that can help carry you through some difficult damage profiles. But then Life Cinders as well, this is where you can Renewing Blaze someone else. Like I talked about earlier in the video, I would base this on a dungeon basis, whether you take either or. Again, just understanding the damage profiles and which one is better suited to the key. I'll have more guides on this stuff later when I do commentaries and such, but again, if you take this talent, just make sure you target the person you want the Renewing Blaze to go on. That is the optimal way to do it. Otherwise, every single time you press Renewing Blaze, it's just going to randomly go on someone. This is really insane if you're in a poll and you're taking damage, but there's no like group damage going out or nobody else is in danger. It's always a safe bet to put this on your tank. Renewing Blazing your tank is so good for your tank survivability. Like if you're getting hit by I don't know, a targeted spell that's like a big hit, right? And you have the talent, it's going on 2 people, it might as well go on the tank, okay? Because no one else is taking damage. You're like, oh, I'm targeted. Wow, I'm going to heal myself back up, but I'm also going to put this on my tank, and it's sort of like a little external on my tank. It does a lot of tank healing. This is very good, okay? So things to consider. Cauterizing Flame, for the love of God, Evokers, please press this button. Please set up your UI to track bleeds, poison, curses, and diseases, okay? We also have a Poison Dispel, Expunge. Make sure in Arakara you are using this on cooldown. It is more important to dispel this on cooldown in Arakara than it is for you to mix in a damage global. This poison will kill you, okay? Use your utility. People will love you if you use your utility. Damage isn't everything, okay? So we got Expunge, we have Cauterize. Please set up your UIs so that they can track this stuff this season. There are some very important ones, and please use them, okay? They go a long way. But yeah, Evoker is tanky, okay? It is tanky when you play it properly. Be proactive. If you die, take a look at your death and be like, okay, next time I know I'm taking a lot of damage here, I'm going to plan for this to be pressed, okay? Rescue can get you through most things at the key levels you guys will be doing. I promise you, Rescue is the most insane button ever. But I caution you when using Rescue, let other players play their character. Do not move their character for them unless they ask you or unless you know for certain that you are saving them from, an incoming ground effect or mechanic or whatever. Okay? One thing I like to do with that is just rescue people on the spot. Rescue them under their feet. Do not move their character. Rescue them exactly where you found them. Okay? Leave them there. Don't move them. Just use it for the defensive value unless otherwise noted. Okay? That's very important. Like, don't grief people's gameplay. Don't grief people's mechanical movements, stuff like that. And lastly, if you start getting into higher keys or higher content where your defensive usage has to be mapped out and planned perfectly, keep in mind that the duration of spells matters. Duration versus cooldown, okay? What I mean by that is Obsidian Scales last 12 seconds, but it's on a 1.5 minute recharge, okay? So an example of this that you want to pay attention to is, let's say that a boss is on 45-second, 50-second intervals of when the damage event occurs. Okay, the damage event is just one hit and then done, right? Your wall lasts 12 seconds. So in a lot of cases, you don't want to press your wall right before the damage event. And then let's say you press it, there's 12 seconds on your wall, damage event happens, and now you just have your wall for 11 seconds doing it. Right? It's better to press it early. Obviously, make sure it's going to be up for the hit. Get it on cooldown. Get it start recharging, so that later down the boss's timeline, it'll come up again when you need it. Right? You don't want to ever fall into this awkward situation where you have gaps in your defensives and they're just like barely off. Right? I noticed this a lot in season 1, especially in Dawnbreaker. You would defensive right when the hit happened, and then you're kind of just walling nothing. It's like just fading into air, right? You wall the next one. Okay, now I'm pressing, rescue and renew on this one, and then now the cycle restarts, and my wall is just a few seconds off, right? So if that ever happens, try and get down the pattern of, okay, if I press my wall, 8, 9, 10 seconds before the mechanic, it's going to be up for the hit that happens at 11 seconds, and then it's going to expire, but then it's starting to get on cooldown early. Okay, just keep that in mind. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys like this video. I've never really done a guide like this. I'm very new to YouTube. I'm very new to editing. I do it all myself, all the editing stuff. If there's literally any advice you could give me, please leave it down in the comments. Again, I'm so new to this. I'm a big noob. I apologize if it's not the best thing out there, but please let me know. I'll take all of your feedback and I will listen to it. But thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great tier.